The Hundred Years' War, a sprawling and transformative conflict between France and England, raged from 1337 to 1453, stretching across 116 years of intermittent battles, fragile truces, and shifting alliances. This epic struggle, despite its misleading name, emerged from a tangled mix of dynastic rivalries, territorial disputes, and economic stakes, leaving an indelible mark on both nations. It was a war that saw the rise of legendary figures, the evolution of military tactics, and the slow unraveling of the medieval feudal order, paving the way for modern notions of national identity and centralized power. The roots of the war trace back to 1328, when the death of France's King Charles IV without a male heir sparked a succession crisis. French nobles, bound by Salic law that barred inheritance through women, crowned Philip VI, a cousin of the late king. Across the Channel, Edward III of England, whose mother Isabella was Charles IV's sister, eyed the French throne with ambition. Though Edward initially acquiesced to Philip's rule, the underlying tension soon burst into flame. Beyond the crown, land and trade fueled the fire. England clung to Gascony, a lucrative duchy in southwestern France, which French kings coveted as part of their realm. Meanwhile, Flanders, a wealthy region tied to England's wool trade, chafed under French pressure, tilting toward rebellion and English aid. In 1337, when Philip seized Gascony, Edward declared himself France's rightful king and launched his campaign, igniting the war. The conflict unfolded across decades, a jagged dance of victories and setbacks. In its early years, England surged ahead, their longbowmen rewriting the rules of battle. At Crécy in 1346, Edward III's archers shredded a larger French force, their arrows piercing armor and pride alike. Calais fell soon after, a prize England would grip for centuries. Then came the Black Death in 1348, a grim interlude that halted the war as plague ravaged both sides, slashing populations and stalling armies. When fighting resumed, England struck again at Poitiers in 1356, where the Black Prince, Edward's son, captured King John II of France. The Treaty of Bretigny in 1360 handed England vast lands and a shaky peace, but it wouldn't hold. France clawed back in the late 14th century, as Charles IV, the Wise, leaned on cunning and a brilliant commander, Bertrand du Guesclin. Avoiding pitched battles, they chipped away at English holdings with guerrilla raids and sieges, reclaiming much of the lost ground by Charles's death in 1380. England, tangled in its own troubles, peasant revolts, and a weak Richard II, faltered. A truce in 1389 paused the war, but it was a brittle calm, strained by both sides' refusal to yield their claims. The war roared back in 1415 under England's Henry V, a warrior king whose triumph at Agincourt stunned the world. With rain-soaked fields and longbows, his outnumbered army slaughtered France's elite, seizing momentum. By 1420, the Treaty of Troyes made Henry heir to France's throne, wedding him to Catherine of Valois and sidelining the Dauphin, Charles VII. Yet Henry's death in 1422, followed by his infant son Henry II's reign, unraveled England's grip. Into this chaos stepped Joan of Arc, a peasant girl whose visions rallied France. In 1429, she broke the siege of Orléans, igniting a surge that crowned Charles VII and turned the tide. The final act dragged to 1453, as France, bolstered by artillery and a growing sense of unity, drove England from its shores. The Battle of Castillon, with French cannons pounding English lines, marked the end. England kept only Calais, a lone foothold lost later. The war's toll was vast. Lives, wealth, and old ways swept away. France emerged battered but coalescing as a nation, its monarchy stronger. England, stung by defeat, turned inward, soon spiraling into its own Wars of the Roses. The Hundred Years' War wasn't just a clash of kings, it was a crucible. Chivalry waned as gunpowder rose, peasants became soldiers, and loyalty shifted from lords to crowns. It was messy, brutal, and epic, a saga that echoes still in the histories of two nations forged anew.